Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's TSFA Virtual Learning Hands-On. My name is Amanda. I'm the Education Assistant at TSFA. We are pleased to offer these virtual learning hands-on sessions made possible by the Texas Floral Education Underwriters. TSFA's virtual learning will be archived and made available at tsfa.org, located under the TSFA On Demand tab, /TSFA Catalog of Virtual Learning. Today, our guest speaker, Stacey Bal, will be presenting California Wildflowers. Stacey is a floral designer, speaker, leader, and floriculturist. Just a little housekeeping before we begin. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have time for questions at the end. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Stacey. Stacey, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to talk about California wildflowers. So the origin of the name is coming from the fact that not only are our flowers provided by Cal Flowers, one of our TSFA underwriters, but also we're kind of going for a wild feel. So it's a play on words. We have a lot of dried product to play with today. So we're driven by material today, both hard goods and fresh. We're going to talk about new, exciting ways to find kind of what we're used to seeing as a fieldy flower shown in some new, exciting applications. So I know why you're all here. You're all here to see what I've made, how I've made it, where I got the items from. We're not going to waste any time, but please, please, please feel open, encouraged actually, to communicate with both me and the group by typing in your comments. Don't ever hesitate to ask a question. You never know when a few other people have the same question yourself or where the conversation will go. So don't be shy. Make sure that you can communicate back with me, and we're going to have a good time for about the next half hour. I have 5 designs prepared for you today, and they're all very different. Some of them are construction heavy. Some of them took me under 3 minutes to make. Others, much more. But we have a combination of very easy skill set to something a little bit more tedious and complicated. I think we should start with the piece that's right in front of me, as it does connect to this other piece on this side of the screen. I love this container so much from Syndicate Sales. It's called a succulent flight trio. So playing off the concept of a beer flight or a wine flight that you'd see at the bar, this beautiful wood slab and leather handles on it have these cups that just come right off and fit right here in the recessed portion of the wood. These are so versatile. Typically, you'll see them advertised through Syndicate Sales with their beautiful concepts of either succulent heavy or terrarium style pieces, but why not use these watertight vessels to expand them into a floral story? So today, it's weird to start with the first one talking about how it's discarded material, but that's where I'm starting. The base of this expression is actually the pieces I cut off of this dune grass here from Knut Nielsen. So they come in a bundle, just like you see here. Of course, this has many other items added to it, but they're baled at the bottom in 2 portions. When I knew I wanted to make a bouquet in the appropriate proportions for a human that wouldn't completely block their face when they would be walking down an aisle, I trimmed them accordingly. And the excess I made into a natural structure inside of the succulent flight trio. So this little hedge of grass is the discard from the bottom of the dune grass from Knut Nielsen. There's a couple different ways that you can complete a design like this. If you pack it in there really tightly, it allows you to sink a 3-inch or 4-inch, depending on your proportions, acrylic water tube directly into the grass. And then you fill your water tube, your grass stays dry, which is what I've done here. Another option would be to use a Kensan in the base of the glass. If you're going to do so, I recommend attaching either old school floral cling to the bottom, which we all have around our shops and our supplies, which we probably had for 20 or 30 years. Maybe it's a fossil now, but it still works. Or the new progressive U-glue option from Smithers Oasis. So I find that cling really does the job a little bit better in this application than a U-glue dash. But you can just put your adhesive on the bottom, put your Kenzon in the bottom of the container, and then add your tight grass on top of it to create an option. Now, if you're going to do it that way and add water, dune grass won't be your friend. You'd be better off with either cut flax leaves, perhaps Liriope muscari, some lily grass, maybe even some discarded rose stems done in the same application, but basically something that's going to accept the water and they'll get along. The dune grass better will receive a water tube inside of it, which is what I've done here. So we've used a combination of dried dune grass, the bunny tails in natural from Knut Nielsen, and then we've got a few different fresh products from Wildflowers threaded through to kind of create this airy, feminine piece on a masculine base here. So once again, incredibly versatile. The repetition of the similarity of the piece is, I think, really restful for especially an event centerpiece or even a reception desk. Why not consider something like this as a gift? Because then this piece from Syndicate Sales can go a long way for the recipient, instead of just doing a normal clear glass vase that we've all done before. So Succulent Trio from Syndicate Sales. And now we're going to move on to this piece, which is connected because, like I said, we shared grass. I wanted to show, if you'll see a lot of my work, another natural structure. So this is considered a natural structure here. And the grass combination in this spiral hand-tied bouquet is also a natural structure. I took all of the grasses in my hand, and then I added some more of the wild grass, which is this broader grass here from Knut Nielsen, just to add a little bit of difference in texture, a little bit of tension between the two. And I bundled them in my hand, binded them with the Oasis fine wire in natural, which is the same color palette as the grasses. And I binded it in two places. So there was a high binding point and a low binding point. The reason this is important is that if you're just to do one, the grasses are slippery and they'll wing out. So just as you're making even a, I would hate to say run-of-the-mill, but every hand-tied bouquet that we all do as florists, you're not just going to have a single binding point if you want to have clean stems at the bottom. You're going to bind it in two places. If you do a single, the stems are going to fan out a little bit more, and it's really a beautiful vibe. But with grasses slippery like this, you need a double binding point. So once I did a band on the top and on the bottom, I just started threading other products in. I have both the Lady Amherst feathers and ring neck pheasant feathers from Knut Nielsen in there. The bunny tails that I've used in this piece will also be shown in another piece. This is the chocolate color. It's one of my favorites. I think maybe the overwhelming heat that we're getting in the Midwest today is making me lean into fall a little bit. I love summer, but the fall palette is really one of my favorites. And then after I've added the feathers, you start, and the bunny tails, you start to see the actual bundle get tighter and stronger. So then you can use it to thread fresh product. Even a heavier spray rose, which is a beautiful variety. And I don't remember the name of the variety. If anybody knows, please share with the class, but I'm going to check on it for you in a moment. So I have just about 4 stems of spray roses, some flowering oregano, which smells amazing, in addition to the dried products. And the over the handle on here, I've used a bracelet to cover up the mechanics of the wire, just a different way to finish off a bouquet. That brass bracelet was from Forever 21. It was $3. Strongly encourage you to look into some beautiful cheap bracelets like this for not only corsage work, but also consider it to decorate bud vases, to decorate any other larger vases, but also for a bouquet handle. I think that having the juxtaposition of a metallic sheen versus the natural finish on the brass really makes this piece more interesting. So there, yes, of course.
Stacey, sorry, I was just going to interrupt you for a question.
Please do.
Vilma is one of our participants today, and she was wondering if we're going to be able to see you make one of these in front of us.
I think that's a great question. And if there's enough interest, I do think that there's potential to expanding this to a how-to video series. Of course, keeping them short. I know 30 minutes is a lot to take out of your day, and I'm so grateful that you're all here to do so. But I like to move quickly. So if we're going to create some how-to videos for you guys, I'd like to keep them under 3 minutes so you can really see these techniques close up. And I hope that I have that opportunity through TSFA. I know it's been unfortunate that we've had to postpone or cancel a lot of our educational opportunities globally because of our current situation. So I think some short how-to videos would be a great solution to that. So let's hope that we can move forward and do that for you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Stacey. Don't see any right now.
Okay, great. So then we can move forward. I'm going to remove a couple pieces from the table. I have two, one that's sort of off camera and another that's completely off camera, but I want to make a little bit of room for you guys. So one moment, please. A good spiral bouquet should always stand up on the table. It's a good test to give yourself. So we'll start with what we have here on the table. This piece is very heavy, so you won't see me moving it too much. I really wish you could get a bird's eye view of this right now, but hopefully we'll have some images to share with you post that you can really see it a little bit closer in detail. I wanted to really lean into the California story here. I myself lived in California for 3 years. There is a large California-shaped hole in my heart now that I've left. The landscape of California, although very strongly from surf and sea and sand to snow and mountains and forest, I really was drawn to the desert in California. I spent a lot of time hiking and exploring, especially in Joshua Tree. One of my favorite places in the world. So being inspired by that desert climate that I don't get in humid Chicago, I wanted to show a dish garden for you and a way to take a dish garden up a notch with some of the Wildflowers products that we have. So I've just added some of my succulents and cactus collection that I have here in my home to this piece. This container here is called a Zilla stand, it's Z-I-L-L-A from Accent Decor. This is the smaller of the two. There is a slightly larger size as well. They hold a lot of water, they hold a lot of product. It can be used as something even like a compote design that we all know and love, but it can be really versatile. So today I wanted to show it in this capacity. Part of my work, you're going to see the signature is transparency. So not only within the work, but also beneath the container. I find that really interesting to watch it hover. This is well made. I really love it. I think it would be a great addition to the shop. Also, if the strong contrast of black to glass isn't your thing, you can hit it with a little Design Master. Everybody knows 24K is my favorite, but a little bit of gold never hurt anybody if you were to hit the black with some metallic. So I digress, we'll go back. All of the base filler is provided by Accent Decor. We have black sand, the black pebbles, and also the white pebbles here. To be honest, I didn't have enough to fill this container. So this morning, I sunk a really large 6x6 syndicate sales cylinder and covered it with plastic wrap and stuck it in the middle of this to kind of dummy up the container because I didn't have enough. In a perfect world, I would have had time to procure a little bit more, but if you're ever in a pinch and you have to do it, you can always dummy up your container. I know that's a very technical term, but you can add another piece of something inside for volume. So I've done that in here. I have a collection of amethyst rock in here too. This is something we're seeing a lot in retail floristry here in Chicago. I am working with City Scent Chicago, a great team here in Streeterville, downtown area of Chicago. And a lot of our terrariums and dish gardens, we're adding a lot of stones to them. So I have rose quartz and amethyst in this one, but I was really inspired by a lot of the work we do in the shop to bring it to you here. It especially looks really good if you have this on all white rock. It would have a real feminine vibe. So to get our fresh flowers in it, it's so simple. We've just sunk 3-inch water tubes inside the rock, and you can just kind of wiggle them in just like this if you want, or if you have a long pair of tweezers, you can dig them in, create the hole, and follow it as a guide with your water tube. A trick with your water tubes here, if you don't want your flowers to shift a lot in your tube, and you also like that airy look, you can add a wire to the inside of your tube. So here I've used vine wire. I've just rolled it up a little bit, stuffed it in the tube. You can do it with Oasis aluminum wire. You could do it with spool wire, as long as it's not oxidizing. And you can create a mechanic to hold the stems better. That way they won't shift as much inside of the tube. Now, if your water tubes were visible, you want to be mindful of the type of wire you can use once again, which is why I'm recommending a metallic wire, because that can actually play into the form of this thing. So why not try to add a little bit of fresh product to your terrariums and your dish gardens? This is a way to kind of connect the two. I have a lot of customers here in Chicago that are strictly plant customers only. And I've been trying to integrate more fresh products into their dish gardens, into the baskets. And I know we've been doing this for a long time. Perhaps you put roses inside of an old dish garden or something like that, but taking it to a new place by upgrading things like amethyst, these really attractive containers like the Zilla stand, more highly decorative stones inside of there really kind of brings this to 2020. So I really am fond of this style piece. And even if this large container doesn't work for you, because let's be honest, this retails really, really high. You can do the same thing in a 4-inch bubble bowl. We all have them. You can get something to retail for under $30 in there with a couple little succulents, one single water tube, and even a beautiful stem coming just to the top of the bubble bowl. So try to take this concept and scale it down to what would fit your business, or potentially scale it up if you're in a position to do so. So I'm going to move on to my next set. There's no questions here. I think eventually I'll have to move this big one too. The next piece is a duo. So I like to call these companion pieces. I kind of wonder if this is something I repeat too much in my teaching, but I'm not sure if you guys have heard it yet. So bear with me if you have already. One thing I realized in the journey of my artistry and the evolution of my work is when I had my daughter, I started to really lean into companion pieces, creating two of the same and potentially making them interact. Occasionally they don't, occasionally they'll stand separate, but the similarity, the echoing, the repetition of the same piece, I think makes it stronger. So sometimes you have a budget of, I don't know, let's say $100, and we always go to one piece, but this offers you the potential to take that money, divide it into two, and actually make two and visually connect them. Maybe your customers won't get it, maybe they will, but you don't know unless you try. So at the very least, I encourage you to make a piece for yourself and see if you like the way that they physically connect, or if you have them apart, how they, there's an implied connection or an echo between the two. The construction of these pieces are incredibly simple. This amazing metallic floral mesh from Smithers Oasis is placed around a just recycled glass clear cylinder base that we all have, call it utility glass. This can be done on a small scale. Bud vase could be done much larger. It could be really tall. It could be moderate. This application can really transcend a lot of different things. But today we've done, I think it's about I would say a 10-inch cylinder with a 4-inch opening. And I opened up the floral mesh, wrapped it around twice, and used Oasis fine wire in just a few sections to close it off. I repeated the next step on the next level and just did another double wrap and connected them with fine wire. That easy. Now, if you want them to transport well, you're gonna have to add a bottom to the base here. So I actually cut a piece of the floral mesh in a size to cover the bottom of the base. And all I did is turn the wire in on itself and made the bottom so I can actually pick up and move the container. To help you along with this process, U-glue dashes are amazing, and you can kind of sneak a few of them in there to make sure the wire is not flipping around and tossing and turning while you're creating it. So we have our companion pieces. We have our structure. Yes?
Can I interrupt you for one more question?
Please do, anytime.
Rebecca Sullivan was wondering, where is the top of the floral mesh?
It's probably tough to see on this camera. So right where my hand level is, it comes to about right here. And they are even. I have them both at the same height. Now you could expand that to staggering them, especially if you were going to do a skyline collection of them down the center of the table, or even for your corporate clients against a wall. You can kind of play with the levels. If you are going to play with the levels, make sure it's intentional and they're not too close where it looks like you didn't get them even, so make sure to exaggerate it. But for me, I cut them even here. And there's a reason why I went above the top of it and not right at the top. I like that added level of ascension and transparency here above the top of the floral mesh. So this will come in gold. I also really, really like the rose gold. Don't be afraid to spray paint it, hit it with another color. It looks really great in the matte ink color from Design Master if you want a really industrial dark look with it. And you can play around with different colored glass on the inside as well, or even an opaque container. But once again, I maintained the transparency there. So I hope that answered that question. Is there any other ones on the construction of this one?
No, we are good
Okay.
to go. Thank you, Stacey.
Great, of course, absolutely. So the beauty of this is you're thinking, okay, well, how did I get some of this product all the way up here? I know my bottom of my base is all the way down here. Couple things to think about. If your container would be lower here, you'd be able to bring your botanicals down lower in this piece. If you had some type of vine material, you could always insert it in the water source and have the vine come down to kind of break up this line here. So be mindful if you want something to be botanical here to either have something with vine or drape, like a hanging amaranthus would be beautiful. You could do passion flower vine, some ivy, really, even if you had a dry like kiwi vine, you could bring in, break up this line here. But some of my stems up here, the bottom of this stem, the insertion into the water is only at this level. And I've been able to attach them accordingly with vine wire in a few spots, and I snuck it in there. Or I've had them kind of latch onto each other like a grid with their stems. So the beauty of this is you can go tall, even with product that may not be as tall as what you have. This can be done even with a potted plant. You can have something like a beautiful double spike phalaenopsis in here with the roots all coming up through the wire. It's an application that transcends to plants as well. So we have some beautiful Wildflowers product in there. It's really fun to see some dahlias at this time. These incredible spray roses from them again. We've got Orangium. There's a flowering oregano in here. We've got Asclepias pods, sweet pea. I mean, really just phenomenal product from Wildflowers. I particularly love how many tendrils they have on their sweet pea. It kind of dances throughout the piece and helps physically connect the two pieces here. So the color story that we have is these rich jewel tones kind of playing off the plums. The burgundies, purple is bringing it to red, and with this blue, it really cools it down. You can kind of see in this dahlia in the front how the cool color really pops through, and that color play is definitely from the true blue of the eryngium that you see throughout the piece. So I cannot reiterate enough to play with this. If you don't want to build on the outside of your cylinder, you can build on the inside. So another good way to try it is, even if you have a shorty, like a 4-inch or a 3-inch cylinder, even like the size of the cylinders that I showed you in our succulent trio, you can do a roll of this wire vertical on the inside of the glass and use it as a mechanic as well. Just make sure that when you're closing off your wire to bind them, to connect them, you're doing it at least 2 points. Always bind in 2 places. You can also use zip ties too, and they're quick, they're easy, they're a little bit clunkier than the bind wire. The bind wire has a more refined finish than the zip tie, but a zip tie is fast. And they come in all different sizes and colors, so you can use that as well. They've really been woven through the piece. You can see I've actually encouraged some of the stems to kind of introvert and go back into the piece to really bring your eye up and throughout the compositions. So I hope that you can see the potential with this application and make it fit your design style and also your customer base. I'm going to remove these few, and I'm going to bring up my final piece, which will take up the whole table. So it'll just take a moment. Please feel free to comment if you have any questions. As I'm moving these giant tweezers off my table, I know I talked about how to create a relief in this. If you don't have this in your toolbox, you're making a mistake, because there's no way to pick up spiky cactus without hurting yourself without these. You can also use plastic tongs, which are dirt cheap. Even at Dollar Tree you can get them, but make sure that you have something to pick up your spiky materials. Also, it'll allow you to pick up little items that might not belong on your white pebbles. So I went back, but make sure that you invest in some tongs or some good tweezers. They also will take a thorn out of your finger in a pinch if you need to. Okay, pray for me on this one, guys, the heavy one. All right, and the final piece I've prepared for you today. Let's see, we'll get it into a frame. There you go. Now this final piece is a horizontal proportion, vegetative inspired piece. It's very natural in a lot of ways. That really can be used in a bunch of different applications. Again, I'm all about versatility, as you can see, because I know I refer to it quite often. I want to make sure that you know that any of these designs can apply to you with the right imagination and the right amount of willpower to put yourself to the tedious test. It's good to have good people to help you as well, because anytime you see me on here, I'm never doing all of this alone. I always have really good, loving help. So thank you for that. So this piece, the foundation is a 2x4, cut to size. If you're trying it for the first time, any scrap wood you have laying around will work. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 2x4. This piece, we've drilled holes in it, 15 precisely on this piece, taking the palm net from Schuster's of Texas and rolling it and drilling right through the palm net to create a hole through them and into the wood. When you're drilling your hole into a piece for a design similar to this, you do not want to go all the way through the bottom of the wood. You'll want to go about 3/4 into the wood and then pull the drill out. Always make sure that you have a piece of scrap wood on top of your design table before you start drilling. Please learn from me. I've done it many times as a much younger florist and made mistakes and ruined some surfaces because of it. So make sure you put down a working slab of wood on, underneath your actual base of your foundation of your structure. So we're drilling right through the palm, and there's literally no other way that this is attached. The tension between the dowel that we drilled through into the board is what's holding it into place. If you did need a way to play with it a little bit more and attach it, you can always use your U-glue dashes. You don't necessarily need to use wooden dowels. You can use bamboo skewers, which are $100 for a couple bucks, not only at most grocery stores, but you can get them on Amazon, super inexpensive. All the barbecue aisles and all the retailers right now will have them. I always have them in my toolbox. I like them better than a hyacinth stick for a lot of work at the shop as well, because the green on a hyacinth stick does not exist in nature. Still don't really understand why they still make those that color green. So a bamboo skewer is really good, not only for this application, but to have in your toolbox. So backing up, we've drilled a hole through the palm net as we've twisted it around. And actually, let me get a piece and show you how pliable it is. Bear with me. So Schuster shipped this to me, and it comes in this great package. There's so many in here, and they're packed flat in these workable sections. So I haven't had to cut any of this. We've just used them as is. This is what it'll look like, more or less. Of course, they all vary because they're natural, and we've just let them do their thing. So for example, with this one, we might kind of bend it like this, and we've drilled right through the palm net into the 2x4. Once you create that hole, you would insert a wooden dowel or a bamboo skewer. It's good to prep them ahead of time with your water tubes. That is our water source once again. So I've used a 3-inch acrylic water tube from Smithers Oasis. And here you're seeing it pre-attached to a wooden dowel. The way to do this is always with 2 binding points, never 1, always 2. I've got a U-glue dash here and a U-glue dash on the bottom. The dowel is attached to the adhesive, and then as a double mechanic, just to really make sure we're secure, there is 1 ring of bind wire with a double twist and a trim on both top and bottom. I cannot express enough how important a double binding point on all your mechanics. We're talking about building a major art or arch or an installation at an event, or something down to a single water tube. If you only attach it in one place, you're gonna get a kick off to the side. Double mechanic. Also, when you're using your bind wire, there is no need to wrap it more than once. That's what the product is made for. The product is made so well that it only needs a single wrap and a double twist. If you twist more than that, you lose tension, and if you wrap more than that, you also lose tension and money because you've used too much wire. So this is maybe you know it, maybe you've been doing it for years, but this is where it's at. Double binding point. Always use a double mechanic if you have the option and the time, and make sure you're only doing a single wrap and a double twist, pre-trimmed. So we have all these preps. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you for another question. The product that you were using is, that's palm net from Schuster's of Texas, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And that is what's used all throughout the bottom of this piece. It has become one of my favorite products that I work with. Not only have we used it here, but one way I really like to use it is to wrap a mixed bouquet. So if you were to take the product and just wrap it. You can, instead of using paper or even cello and tissue at your shop, you can create a cone that you put a beautiful mixed bouquet in, especially your dried products. So if you are selling drieds for the fall, or even bunches of lavender that's dried and fragrant, some maybe some feathers, maybe some dried palms in your shop, putting it in a natural cone really takes your branding up to the next level. If you have a hard time closing it off, I recommend actually threading wire through the holes in the relief instead of wrapping like raffia around it, because it'll slip. So it's good to actually thread it through before you wrap it all the way around. So yes, this is palm net from Schuster's of Texas. It can be used in this application, like this, many, many ways. It is a breeze if you're creating botanical couture. It's great for the base of a dress. I've created a corset out of it before. It lasts a very long time, and to me, having this brilliant burnt orangey chocolate color straight from nature without any augmentation is really a bonus, because we don't get this color that often in our fresh flowers. So please try it in your work. And I used it on our organic structures class that I led on June 28th, which we have archived for you. I used it in another application as well. I used it on a brass circle, and I hot glued water tubes inside of it. So really play with the material. It's lightweight, long lasting, and the texture is phenomenal. So I hope that that helps. I'm gonna move forward if there's no other questions right now. So I've created just kind of a dancing, vegetative inspired piece, meaning that even though we know this wouldn't grow like this in nature, and the base of it is highly decorative, there definitely is a garden feel, like it grew like this. Collection of Nigella, the bunny tails from Knut Nielsen. We've got some pods again. We've got the flowering oregano, really just playing off of that kind of darker fall tone color palette once again, and creating layers of transparency and throughout the piece. So for me, something like this, because the base is kind of heavy, I would keep the floral light and small in proportion, just so it kind of floats above it. This really leans into the concept of visual tension and also all of the Gestalt principles. So we're looking at kind of contradicting ourselves. It's really heavy and rough, and then we went really dainty and light over here, and the play of the two different vibes is really what keeps you interested in a composition. So this, to me, is kind of breathing new life into a fall color palette. These berry tones kind of brightened up by a little light blue with the chocolate, I think, is a good way to approach a fresh new concept for a color story for our kind of trans-seasonal August into September customers. Is there any other questions about this one, Amanda?
Yes, there is actually. Is that bunny tail a fresh product or dry?
It's dried, and it's from Knut Nielsen. So you'll see a lot of these on the market, especially in bright tones. You'll see them in that millennial pink, kind of the lilac, lavender, purple. They come in blue. They come in bleached white. But this is that chocolate color. I also use the natural bunny tails in the first piece, but they are all dried, and they last a very long time. I like that their stems are so small. They're great for boutonniere and corsage work because they're really lightweight, and it adds a really fun texture. I think that we don't have a lot of options for soft matte material in our work. We always lean to something like lamb's ear or Dusty Miller, but to be able to bring in a whole other element with these bunny tails, I think is great. They come in a really large bunch from Knut Nielsen. They're very affordable. They go a very long way. So if you haven't tried them before, this is the time to get them. When you're looking at this trans-seasonal, mid to late July into August, if you have them prepared for your August and September customers, once again, that trans-seasonal vibe into late summer and fall will really be good with these bunny tails. it's hard to make them do anything but what they want to do. So what I mean by that is their stems vary, just like a natural stem, because it is a natural product that is dry. So you're going to see them kind of bend and shape. You want to listen to the product. So we talk about material-driven design. Know your medium. Know your product, play with it, and listen to it. If the stem wants to go this way, but you need it to go that way, well, you have to put it down and get a different one, or you have to change your mind and kind of go with the flow. That's where a lot of these dried materials will kind of lean you into this wild look. And that's why today we presented it as California Wildflowers. So not only are we're using their California product, but we are looking into this kind of easy, free-spirited version of design. But I couldn't just give it to you in the way you've seen it before. I wanted to bring a little bit of structure and meaning and a little bit of my urban elements to the work. So I really hope that you enjoyed the presentation today. I hope that you have takeaways from these applications and techniques that you can bring into your own art and your own clientele as well.
Thank you, Stacey. Are there any additional questions that anybody has for Stacey while we still have her? Okay. You may also reach Stacey by her email, or you can email txsfa@sbcglobal.net. Stacey, are there any additional questions that you have for people in the audience that are watching right now?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think that because I could talk to you guys forever. I could ask you a bunch of questions, but I think that, you know, what I really want you to get from this is, you know, if you haven't used it before, don't be afraid to try. Please commit yourself to learning your product. So if that means connecting with your wholesalers and your growers to really understand the shelf life of them, how they pack, how they transport, how they'll look in a design, where they belong, how to care for them. I really encourage you to kind of if you're not already acquainted, get reacquainted and kind of ignite that fire back to the botanicals. Because sometimes if we're taking it back to basics and just looking at the shape and the color palette that's already in front of our faces, we can be inspired to build on that. So listen to your materials, learn from them, but don't get stuck. Like, don't get stuck with the same ones. When you have great people to work with, like we do at Wildflowers and all of our underwriters, don't be shy. Pick up the phone. A lot of people don't do that anymore. People email, but pick up the phone, talk to your suppliers, talk to your salespeople, ask them to send you something that you've never used before. Or even connect with your florist friends that maybe are a little underworked right now with the conditions that the world is in. I mean, perhaps you're overworked, I'm not sure. I know we're very busy here in Chicago, but challenge your friends. Send material to your friends. Start a challenge on the Florist of Facebook. Get connected with your TSFA community and challenge people to use new materials and communicate how to share them. You don't know until you try. Your consumer doesn't know what's available until you show them. And you can't move forward and inspire yourself without trying new things. So I highly encourage you to continue your education. I'm so glad that you took the time today to expand on your current education, and I hope to stay connected with all of you in the future and see you at our future virtual learning sessions with all the designers here at TSFA.
Thank you, Stacey. That was a fantastic presentation. Everyone enjoyed it. We have a lot of good comments saying great job, and they were very inspired, so we really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a great time again. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for being on this call today. We appreciate all of you attending. We will have this archived at tsfa.org under TSFA On Demand. We want to thank all of our underwriters again for providing product, providing supplies for us to be able to put this on for you guys. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.